everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Alexa. Today I'm making chocolate chip cookies that are thin, crispy, and chewy. I've measured out all my ingredients. I recommend that you do so too. You can find the list of ingredients and measurements in the link in the description. Remember to watch the video first so you are prepared. I've cut my butter into cubes so they will mix more evenly. They don't need to be exact. I suggest scrambling the eggs with a fork just to break up the yolks. Next, I will combine the flour, baking powder, baking soda, and salt. If you use salted butter, do not add salt. To combine, we use a sifter to make sure there are no clumps. You can use a wire whisk or fork to combine if you don't have a sifter. Next, I'm going to put my butter in the mixer. I normally mix my butter a little by itself first, but this time I forgot. This is a step called creaming, so if you see that in a recipe, that's what it means. You then put in your granulated sugar and brown sugar in with the butter, and mix it until it is fully combined. A rubber spatula is important and very useful at this step, so I'd recommend grabbing one out before you start. When you are mixing, start out at a low power to make sure no ingredients fly out of the mixer before moving to medium speed. If the ingredients aren't combining very well or quickly, you might speed it up, but don't jump too high with your speeds too quickly when you are starting out, or you might end up with a big mess. point, I'm going to scrape down the sides and bottom of my bowl and the mixer blade. This is very important because it makes sure all the ingredients are completely mixed in. I'm going to do this many times throughout the process. When removing the batter from the blade, it might be helpful sometimes to take the blade off the mixer. Make sure that as little batter is on the spatula as possible because it will be harder to mix in the parts that are stuck to it later on. However, because we aren't adding any new ingredients to our mixture yet, it doesn't have to be perfect. It seems like I'm letting this go a long time, but in person it wasn't all mixed together yet. Now that my ingredients are more mixed together, I'm going to scrape down my bowl again. To help when cleaning off my spatula, I'm going to use a second rubber spatula. This spatula is thinner and isn't rounded like my first spatula, which means it can remove the batter from the middle of my spatula that was stuck before. This step looks almost done, but I'm going to let it mix a little bit longer to make sure. Now, I'm going to add my vanilla extract. Vanilla is one of the few ingredients that people say isn't necessary, so if you don't have it, you can still bake most cookies and cakes. Always make sure it's pure and not artificial. I'm going to scrape the little bowl with my spatula to make sure that I use all of it. I noticed that as I was mixing, the vanilla extract wasn't really mixing in. That means it's time to scrape down my bowl. As you can see, it's mixing much better now. Next, I add my eggs to my batter. this point, my batter isn't really combining in a way that I want it to, so I need to scrape down the sides of my bowl. Now, I'm going to continue mixing, and it looks much better now. Now that it's starting to come together, I'm going to scrape down the sides again. I'm going to make sure that I mix it until it is just all combined, because mixing it too much after adding the eggs makes the baked good tough. Now I'm going to scrape down the sides again to make sure that everything is all mixed in. It is all mixed together, so I'm going to move on to the next step, which is combining our sifted flour mixture with our butter mixture. It is important to make sure that all the ingredients enter the mixing bowl so that you don't miss any baking soda or baking powder. Now, I'm going to start my mixer onto the lowest setting so that the dry ingredients are able to mix in and not splatter. Now, I'm going to scrape down my bowl again so all the flour mixture is able to combine with my other ingredients. Make sure to also scrape all the flour down that might have went up the sides of the bowl. At this point, it's very important to clean off the spatula because otherwise the batter on the spatula will not mix in completely with your batter and create clumps. Now I can continue mixing. I'm going to speed up my mixer now that all the dry ingredients are mixed in. Now, my batter's looking just about done. I'm going to scrape down the sides of my bowl to make sure. Now, I'm going to add in the chocolate chips. We use semi-sweet, but you can use any type you want or combined types. At this point, I'm going to just mix in the chocolate chips until they're pretty evenly spread out throughout the batter. Next, I'm going to portion out my dough. I used an ice cream scoop, but you can use a measuring cup if you don't have one. I'm using a 1/4 cup for this recipe. If you are using a measuring cup, scoop out the dough. Make sure that the cup is completely full, otherwise your cookies will end up all different sizes. As you can see, you will need a spatula or a spoon to remove the batter from the measuring cup. After you remove the batter, then you will need to roll it into a ball. And voila! We have our first cookie done. I use a 3 tablespoon measuring cup. This is less than a 1/4 cup, so I'm not going to bake the 2 types together because it will take different times to bake. If you're using an ice cream scoop, you scoop out the dough the same way as if you're using a measuring cup. Don't forget to make sure that the dough is pressed entirely into the scoop. Make sure to remove the excess dough to ensure that all the cookies are the same size. What I like about using an ice cream scoop is that all the cookies will easily come out when you press the scoop and you don't need to roll them out afterwards. I'm going to roll out 3 more cookies. I'm going to put 4 cookies on this baking sheet because they spread. It may look like you can fit more, but it is better to leave more space between the cookies. Otherwise, you might end up with one giant cookie, and I don't think that's what you're trying to get. We leave 3 inches between our cookies, but you can probably leave 2.5. If you'd like, you can roll out the remaining cookies at this step, but I'm going to do that later. Now that I have all my cookies portioned out, I'm going to put them in the oven. My oven's preheated to 350 degrees. Everyone's oven is very different, but after 15 minutes, my cookies were done. I started checking them at 7 minutes. I'd recommend setting a timer for 7 minutes after you put the cookies in the oven and then check to see how they look. If they look done, then great. However, if they don't, set a timer for a few minutes and then see how they look after that. This step can be repeated as many times as are needed for the cookies to be completely cooked. When the cookies have finished cooking, tap them a few times against your countertop to get the air out. After you do that, place the cookie tray on a cooling rack and leave it there for 5 minutes. After the 5 minutes are up, use a spatula to put your cookies onto your cooling rack. This is an important step because it stops the cookies from continuing to bake. And there we are. Our cookies are done and looking delicious. Please let me know what you thought of the video in the comments and how the recipe went for you. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel so you will know when the next video comes out. Thank you and bon appetit!